Hello and welcome to another episode of the CPMC podcast. I am MC, as always, joined by CP. Chris, what's up tonight?
Oh man, not a whole lot. I was thinking about it because, we're going to be posting on YouTube and we've got, our previous leagues on YouTube. Wh- What's this going to look like in about 6 months, 8 months when people go back and rewatch? I mean, we're standing by every take regardless. But this could be really, really bad for our receipts.
Yeah, I've already seen some of our receipts cashed from a couple years ago. One of our frequent customers and a guy that we're in a whole bunch of leagues with, TOB, he messaged me because he was listening to a show from 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whenever it was. And I said, it doesn't matter between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson because they're both likely to be jobless within a few months.
Incredible take. Do you stand by that take? I guess is the big question.
I don't remember the Josh Allen slander. I do remember hating Lamar Jackson, and I stand by it. And I think a lot of the league stood by it this offseason, and really forced the Ravens' hand. But listen, I'm on the same page as 31 general managers.
Listen, regardless, we're gonna let the takes fly tonight. That's for sure. We've got a league tonight, Matt. I did the rankings. I'll just say this: super competitive, top to bottom. I think you're gonna see here as we go through it. There's going to be a lot of interesting decisions that could be made. But we're gonna figure it out here. We're gonna tell people what to do, where to go. Because to me it was very competitive, difficult to rank, honestly. Nobody seems to be outright in the dumps, and there's really no just standout super team here. So super competitive, top to bottom, was how I saw it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the teams, Chris, as well. So we got the Topshelf Dynasty League tonight. Scoring's a little bit wonky, I think, in a couple spots where we got 5 rush yards equaling a point. So that's going to put a heavy premium on the running backs, in my opinion. And then when you look at the receiving premium, we got a point and a quarter for wide receivers and a point and a half for tight ends. I still think this favors the running backs, correct?
You know, I kind of just I kind of just evened it out because, I don't think I think it does, but it doesn't. Then you get the additional wide receiver. I think it's sort of balanced again. Maybe a small increase for the running backs. It's kind of hard to tell without being firmly entrenched in the league for a year or two to get a feel for the scoring. It's hard to weigh that balance. I in the end, yes, I always kind of favor the running backs, and I did so again here tonight.
All right, that's fair enough. So for our new listeners out there, here's what we got for you tonight. We're gonna power rank these teams 12 through 1 on the first show. We're gonna do 12 through 7. Then we take a little break and we'll come back for part 2, where we take a look at 6 through 1. Along the way, we're gonna take a look at each roster, analyze it a little bit, think of any moves that might make this team in a better position for this year or for the future. And again, remember, our rankings are for this upcoming year. Really impossible to see much further down the road than that. So, Chris, without further ado, let's get to that number 12 team. So, the team that you've power ranked as the worst in 2023, we've got the Weller Oiled Machines. And we got Lamar Jackson, Al Jair, Cam Akers, Cooper Kupp, Adam Thielen, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Dallas Goddard, Rice, Allen Robinson, and Russ Wilson. Guys on the bench, we've got Danny Dimes. We've got, who else do we have here worth a mention? Kyron Williams, Kenny Gainwell, Curtis Samuel, Darius Slayton, Wandale Robinson, Jameson Williams. Boy, these are the deepest rosters I've ever seen in my life here, Chris. My goodness. Picks are intact going forward. He's got an extra second to work with as well. Yeah, not as bad as we've seen in recent weeks here, Chris, with the worst team. It's certainly not awful, but it's not great either.
Yeah, you're going to kind of see this theme throughout, at least through at least on our first show tonight that ranks the bottom half of the league. You're going to see, 3 to 4 very quality pieces, and this team has it here in Lamar Jackson, Cooper Kupp, Cam Akers, Even Russell Wilson as well, JSN. I mean, there's some quality pieces here on this team, but again, here comes the pattern here. We've got a lot of missing pieces as well, right? Al Jair, that's basically a zero at running back this season. I don't think you're going to get much out of him. JSN, he's a rookie. What are we going to get out of him? I think he'll be fine. Adam Thielen in a new offense with a rookie quarterback. Who the heck knows? Rashee Rice, Allen Robinson. We don't have a lot of bench here. I mean, it's okay. I don't think this is a playoff team by any stretch, but I think he's going to be fairly competitive, for a number 12th ranked team as 12th ranked teams go. But I think we've got to just embrace this youth movement, Matt, that we kind of started with JSN. I mean, and Rashee Rice. There's not a whole lot else on the bench. Uh, to me, this looks like a sell Lamar Jackson for three pieces if you can get it, and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, if I've got to pick the way to go, I think that's it. I mean, we can't really march forward with what we have here. Not a playoff team, not really a true contender in any of the upcoming years. So it has to be a teardown, or else you're going to be stuck in this kind of position for a really long time. It's not as if we bottom out here, lock in a 2024 top pick, and suddenly we've got something here. So yeah, I'm with you, Chris. We've got to tear it down. And I think it starts with Cooper Kupp, Lamar Jackson, and the likes of Adam Thielen. Just kind of piece together, see what you can get for those. It's got to be everyone, right? I mean, Russ Wilson as well. I mean, there's nobody on here that you keep other than JSN.
Yeah, that's kind of my issue with this team. And again, to see the other side of the coin. I mean, he's going to score some points. I mean, he's got plenty of guys who are going to score points. I just don't see it being enough to compete for a playoff spot given the holes he has. So when that's the case, yeah, let's tear this down. Let's capitalize on the value we can get for Lamar Jackson and Cooper Kupp especially. I mean, those are your two blue chippers. In terms of trade value, get back as much as you can. And if you get back 5, 6, maybe even 7 pieces for those two guys, all of a sudden we got something here. We can, shoot for 2 years down the road for being a really, really solid, potentially juggernaut type team.
All right, Chris, let's move on to our number 11 team. We've got Third and Seagram's 7 here. Third and Seagram's as our number 11 team. We've got Trey Lance, we've got Rashad Penny, Rashad White, Justin Jefferson, Hollywood Brown, Bateman, Mark Andrews, James Conner, James Cook. We got Richardson at our super flex spot. Guys on the bench worth a mention. Oh, man, not a whole lot here, Chris, either. Jamal Williams, who we both like this year. We've got Damian Harris, who I think is an interesting play out there in Buffalo. Nothing else really to speak of at all. Dalton Schultz may be worth a mention. Picks are intact going forward. He's got himself an extra 5th in 2024. Don't spend it all in one place. Yeah, I think we've maybe taken a step forward here, Chris, but I think the floor on this team is limitless. I mean, this team could really stink.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, but what put him what put him ahead for me, again, I think we're splitting hairs here. We've got Justin Jefferson on this team. I think he's, probably the best player on either squad. And, listen, I don't know if Trey Lance is going to be the guy. There was positive news about him today. But if he's a starter, Anthony Richardson plays well. People are already projecting him for a top 8 quarterback in redraft already. I thought there was less holes on this team, with James Conner and James Cook in the flex spots. I think that's okay. No real depth here. It's just a similar team to the last one where you've got some quality pieces, but not a whole lot surrounding them. So I think we've got to take, the same approach here and tear it all down, build around Anthony Richardson, basically the only guy I want to build this thing around. He have him be my, QB1 going forward for the rest of, the next 5 years. Sell off Justin Jefferson for top 3 startup value and get back as much as you can. And just kind of see what you can get for Rashad White when he starts producing points. Mark Andrews is a valuable piece in this league as well. Yeah, it's just kind of the same story as the last team. That just it's got some quality pieces, even some blue chippers, but beyond that, we've got a lot of holes, and it's not quite bad enough to just automatically be the worst team in the league, and it's not really good enough to compete for a playoff spot.
Chris, can you explain the Anthony Richardson love and the Jonathan Taylor hate in the same scenario for me, please, and help me understand it?
uh, Listen, no one likes Jonathan Taylor more than the two of us, so I can't explain the hate. The Anthony Richardson love is just simply due to the fact that he's a running quarterback. I think they just see what Justin Fields was last year with Anthony Richardson, and with Jonathan Taylor there to kind of keep defenses honest a little bit in the running game. That read option game could be really strong. But I don't really understand the Jonathan Taylor hate when it comes along with the Anthony Richardson love. That juxtaposition doesn't make any sense, because I think they can play off of each other and really make that offense pretty decent. So I mean, I think Richardson will be fine. I think he's like a top 15 redraft quarterback. I think that's reasonable, just with his rushing ability. But I'm not ready to take him in the first round of startups or anything like that.
All right, Chris, I'll start off with a hot take here with team two. And I'm going to say Matthew Stafford outscores Anthony Richardson this year alone. Fair or not fair?
I mean, it's reasonable. I think it's in the realm of possibility for sure. It kind of just depends on Stafford's health, I think, right? You're going to get rookie quarterbacks notoriously inconsistent. So I think if Stafford's healthy, I think he can light up the scoreboard.
All right, Chris, it sounds like I just need to go spicier with my next take. You weren't sold on that as being a hot one. I'll get spicier next time. Yeah, I think you said it perfect for this team, Chris. You're absolutely right. Really just hang on to, that quarterback Richardson as the only piece. You'd love to hang on to Jefferson as well, have that be a nice little tandem going forward. But listen, if we do that, we're just not going to bring back the type of pieces that we need to in order to have success down the road. So, it's interesting, Chris. We've seen two teams so far at the bottom of the barrel, and neither of them has much in the way of extra 2024 draft capital.
Yeah, that's kind of going to be a theme throughout the league. I think these guys like to hold on to their draft picks. Is basically what I'll say there.
All right, fair enough. Let's get to our number 10 team then, Chris, where we've got Whiskey Stoned. Whiskey Stoned at number 10. We've got Mac Jones, Najee Harris, Josh Jacobs, Mike Williams, Juju, Christian Kirk, Dawson Knox, DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, and Jimmy G at Superflex. Guys on the bench, we've got Desmond Ritter. We've got Levis, Hendon Hooker, Jerick McKinnon. What else do we have here? George Pickens, the guy that I like, could find his way into the starting lineup. Jacoby Myers as well. Tyler Boyd, Hayden Hurst, Tyler Higbee, all three guys that I kind of like in the deep rounds of startup drafts so far this year. No change in picks going forward. I think we've taken a step forward here, Chris. In fact, I'd say a significant step forward. Still a hole or two, but man, I'd much prefer this team over what we've seen so far.
Yeah, so I think this is the first team we'll see of the next, probably six teams who could legitimately make the playoffs. But what I've got them down here at 10. It's just I just don't know what I'm getting out of these quarterbacks, right? We've got Mac Jones, we've got Jimmy Garoppolo, and maybe Desmond Ritter as well. And that's just, that trio. You throw Will Levis in there if you want to. It's just kind of scary, right? And then you've got David Montgomery, who's basically the backup in Detroit. You've got you know Juju Smith-Schuster here on a new team. What can we expect there? So there's just a couple holes in the lineup, but it's really the quarterbacks for me that are major question marks that pushed him down the ranks. But the lineup is very, very good, and I think he's going to be very competitive and carry this team to potentially a playoff spot. I think he's going to be fighting for it. But again, it's just a quarterback situation that pushed him down for me. I kind of weighted that. We'll see. Maybe I was too heavy-handed on dinging him on the quarterbacks, but that's why he's pushed down here.
No, I think that's fair, Chris, right? I mean, you're not having this quarterback room and feeling really, really confident that you're going to have three guys who are going to last the entirety of the season. So I'm with you here. I think that deserves that push down as well. He's got Levis and Hooker, who could be sleeper picks here, deep on rosters as well. But I do like his depth here, Chris. I think there's some players that he could throw into this starting lineup. What could be the downfall for this team here is really not getting anything from that wide receiver 3 spot, whether it's Kirk, whether it's Juju. I know we do have Pickens sitting here on the bench and Jacoby Myers. I think that's what could end up being his downfall, is just not getting anything from that spot. I mean, a lot of people are loving Kirk again this year. People are down on Juju. So I think it's an interesting spot. So if we're looking outside the quarterback position, I think wide receiver 3 is going to be the position that really gives us pause as well. As far as moves here with this team, Chris, it's still relatively young. I would love to just get a sure thing at quarterback if possible, but I don't know who I'm giving up. I think if anything, I'd love to give up like a DeAndre Swift for a Tua. I don't know. Does that happen?
Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's tough. It's always tough. You know how I feel about trading, um, trading away quarterbacks in Superflex and not getting one back. So I think those deals where you trade a position player for a quarterback is really tough. We'll see as we go along whether, there's some teams with 3 quality quarterbacks or 4 quality quarterbacks where that maybe need some help in the position player spots, but it's generally tough to do. And I'm with you. I think that's sort of the problem here with this team is all I kept thinking every time I see it is how can I upgrade this quarterback position? Can I get Geno Smith? Can I get Aaron Rodgers? These stopgap guys that I think are going to be better off, than the likes of Mac Jones or even Jimmy Garoppolo, and plug them in for just immediate production. But the pieces are just not there for it to happen, right? Because we'd have to significantly weaken our lineup or give up a couple quality pieces like George Pickens and somebody else, or like George Pickens in a first kind of thing, which that gets you maybe one quarterback, but then you still got to deal with another one. So it's really tough to find a deal. I think, if it was me, I think I would try and make a deal of like Pickens in a first for, some kind of quarterback. I don't know if Cousins or Carr can get them back for that kind of thing. I don't know. It's tough to do with the pieces he has, but those are the kinds of deals I'd be exploring.
Yeah, Pickens alone could get you Cousins, according to all the drafts that we've seen so far. So I think you're right to kind of consider something like that. But yeah, I think this team, you said, is going to be frisky heading into that playoff position, jockeying for one of those last couple of spots. So nice there, team from Whiskey Stoned. Let's check number 9, Chris. Right now we've got Sailor Jerry's Dinghy. Sailor Jerry's Dinghy here at number 9. We've got Howell at quarterback. Oh boy. We've got Brees Hall. We've got Bijan. We've got Jamar Chase, Christian Watson, Kadarius Toney, TJ Hawkinson, J.K. Dobinson. Oh my God, Dobbins. I'm already looking at the next guy here. Quentin Johnston and Bryce Young at Superflex. We've got Baker sitting here on the bench to help out. What else do we have here, Chris? Alexander Madison. Interesting, piece here. I wonder how many more times I'm going to hear Dalvin Cook getting cut this offseason before it actually happens. We've got Chase Claypool, who's interesting with the new scenery out there in Chicago. Alec Pierce, who that top 15 quarterback Anthony Richardson will be throwing to this year. Nothing else really to speak of. Musgrave out there in Green Bay is an interesting piece, I think. Extra 5th to work with this year, in 2024 as well. Oh man, Chris, I love the way this thing is built. This is a really, really fun team. I think he's really going to have a lot of fun over the next few years. It's not ready yet. I wish if Sam Howell was, I don't know, if we're building young and I can say somebody like a Tua even, then I would really, really like this team a whole lot better. But, for that reason, you've got to kind of keep them where you have them.
Yeah, I wanted to put this team higher. I was dying to put this team higher. But it's very similarly built to the last team, right? It's very solid position players, and just really weak at quarterback. I just think the position players of this team are a little bit better than the one we saw last, right? I mean, this Bijan Robinson, Brees Hall combo. Sky's the limit on the upside there. This is a really good team. I love it. I mean, man, yet another team I'm dying to find some help at quarterback. We've got Bryce Young, who hopefully is the future, but I think this is a year with this team where you just stand pat. You don't need to add a stopgap guy. Maybe if Bryce Young, after the first month is just lighting it up, you go out and you try and get an Aaron Rodgers type or the aforementioned Matthew Stafford, somebody like that who's a stopgap. Even a Geno Smith, I think, could come at a reasonable price. And you maybe make a sort of a half-hearted playoff run with this team that may not be ready. But I think it could be close to being ready. Like this team would absolutely terrify me if it made the playoffs because that means his young guys have really, really flourished and done really well. A guy like Alexander Madison has found his way into the lineup. You could see it's not hard to envision this team, where things break right. It makes the playoffs. It makes a deep run. I think it does have that kind of upside. But, with Sam Howell and Bryce Young at quarterback, I can't put him any higher than we've got him here.
Yeah, Chris, I think that's going to end up holding him back, right? I mean, I am not seeing Sam Howell putting up even quarterback two numbers. I just can't see that happening. And we know that you've got to have, we've won our fair share of games with Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins at quarterback. But listen, those guys produce and they're generally undervalued every single year. Sam Howell is undervalued and and rightfully so. So for that reason, I might be tempted to kick this thing down the road one more year by trading a J.K. Dobbins, trading even a Brees Hall. We hate having running backs on our team if we're really not going 100% for a title. So I love to build around these young wide receivers. I would love to trade Brees Hall and J.K. Dobbins for wide receivers and kind of see what that looks like. And I think it could just make him a little bit stronger going forward and really just kind of lengthen that window a little bit for him, which I think is probably the better play. Because as good as it will be this year and as fun as it will be to own a team this young, I don't think they're legitimate contenders. They could be frisky in the playoffs. I wouldn't want to play them, but I'm not looking at them and saying, yeah, this team could win it.
What type of quarterback do you need to get to put this team as a title contender for the next 3 years? Who do you need to get? What level? Because I think Bryce Young. I mean, granted, he's an unknown, but I think he's he's going to get every chance in the world to succeed and could be very good. Um, I'm trying to figure out what level of quarterback to get. Is it Tua? Is it is it less than? Is it lower tier than him? Higher tier? I'm trying to figure that out.
Well, that's the problem here, Chris, because we need a talented guy. And if we're going to go with a young, talented guy that fits this roster, then you're going to pay through the nose. And I just don't think he can afford that. Adding, one of the guys that we just mentioned, like a Rodgers, a Kirk Cousins, I don't think makes a whole lot of sense. As weird as it sounds, I just bashed the guy. I think Sam Howell's a good fit for this team because he's a guy that you could replace next year in the draft if you stink or if he happens to flash a little bit here. Now we're into something this year. So I think a guy like Sam Howell kind of fits, but I hesitate to kind of do anything else here, Chris. I mean, the only other name that comes to mind is Trey Lance because I think he could give you that flash in a pan this year. And if not, he's still young where we might be able to get something from him in the future, depending on what happens this year.
Yeah, it's really tough because the quarterback position, you've got those elite young guys that are basically untouchable, and then you've got the aging out veterans, and it's very difficult to find that in between tier. Um, you know, it just as this came to me. I mean, man, I'm so torn with this team because I want to believe that this team could be strong this year. I'm internally debating whether I'd give up two firsts, a 24 and 25 first for Dak Prescott, who I think would fit this team as well. Good, capable young guy. And I wonder if that's a move maybe that I think honestly, we're going to see some of the teams at the top. And like I mentioned at the top of the show, there's no real juggernaut here. I think it's fairly wide open. So I know that's a scary move to give up those two firsts for a guy like Dak, but man, I could see it maybe paying off for this team.
That's too risky for me, Chris. I can't do that. Absolutely no way. With this team being as young as it is, I mean, we say Dak is young, and what is he? He's like 30 years old, isn't he? 29, 30?
Is he that old? He's 29. Come on, he's got 8 years left.
I said 29, 30. No one hates him more than Dallas, and that's the team he plays for. So we'll see. All right, let's get to number 8 here, Chris. We've got Whiskey on the Brox here. Whiskey on the Brox sitting at 8 ranking. We've got Jared Goff, Jonathan Taylor, Javante, Jalen Waddle, Johnson, Chris Godwin, Okonkwo, Calvin Ridley, Traylon Burks, and Trevor Lawrence. We've got Brock Purdy here. Who else do we have on this bench? We've got Charbonnet. We've got a Shane, maybe worth something this year. Jordan Addison sitting on the bench. Odell Beckham as well. Elijah Moore, Schoonmaker out there in Dallas. Gerald Everett is a guy that we like again this year. Extra second going forward here, and an extra fourth as well. Oh man, Chris, not as attractive, I don't think, as the last team that we saw in terms of young talent, but I like this team here, Chris. I think we've taken a nice little step forward. We don't have any real holes, I don't think, provided Javonte Williams starts the season, which we've seemed to have found some good news on him recently.
Yeah, I mean that's the big question, right? This RB2 position, Javante Williams. Will he start the season? Will he be productive this season? And there's really no depth here unless Devin Shane hits, Zach Charbonnet hits, and I'm not going to count on either of those guys this season. And so that's kind of why I pushed him down a little bit to 8. But again, I think this is a fairly quality team. Again, I'd not be surprised if this team finishes in 4th or 3rd even. I think he could get that high, and I think he could be dangerous in the playoffs as well. But between what we deem as a running back premium in this league and only having Javante Williams as your RB2 with no strong backups there, I pushed him down a little bit to 8. And then you factor in Deontay Johnson and Chris Godwin, who may not be overly productive this year, or maybe inconsistently productive is a better word. Traylon Burks as well. Calvin Ridley coming off the non-season he had. It just all sort of there's an accumulation of question marks with this team that just push them down a little bit. But listen, I think it's a very good team. I think this is another team I would consider being a buyer of if I could shore up my running back spot. But I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to wait till the middle of the season, use that first if I have to acquire a running back from a team that's selling. So I think that's where I'm going to need the help, is at that running back spot.
Yeah, again, that's going to be the only piece here. I think, again, Okonkwo at tight end, I think, is another piece, but I think there may be, an Everett or a Schoonmaker here who could make a little bit of noise on the bench. You got Jordan Addison on the bench. You absolutely have to love that. This is kind of a team, Chris, that I don't see it being title worthy. I think it's a playoff team, a fringe playoff team, but I don't think it's like a shoe-in. But
Yeah, yeah.
it's young too, Chris. That's the thing here. If Goff can give him a few more years, that's why I kind of struggle. Like, what do we do with this team? Is it destined to be like a 6th, 7th place team forever? It's possible.
That's why I'm leaning towards buying with this team. Not right now, obviously, but within the first month, I want to make a move to be aggressive with this team, because we're going to see in the next episode, there's no elite teams here, in my opinion, like true juggernauts. And I think it's wide open for teams to make the playoffs, get on a run, and on the back of a hot running back, possibly win the thing. And he's got a chance to do that with Jonathan Taylor. If he can, acquire potentially one more, I think it could put him in a really good spot. And he's got the pick to do it. He's got guys like Burks and Addison, who are young and attractive wide receivers, to make something happen.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. I love that he's got these 3 wide receivers here, plus Burks, plus Ridley, plus Jordan Addison on the bench. So he's stacked there, and we love building our teams that way. Can Trevor Lawrence take one more step forward? We saw him be great last year. I'd love to see him mentioned next year. I mean, if he takes a huge step forward, are we talking about him, given his age, in the Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes conversation in startups?
I mean, maybe, he's already going in the top seven. He could get up there. Just kind of depends how Hurts and Fields and, Lamar does and all those guys up there. So I think it's possible.
All right, Chris, let's get to our number 7 team, our final team of part 1 of the show. At 7, we've got Call Me Old Fashioned. Call Me Old Fashioned here. We've got Fields, we've got Walker, Stevenson, Pittman, Drake London, DJ Moore, Dulcich, Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Robinson, and Dak Prescott. We've got Deshaun Watson and Jordan Love sitting on the bench as our quarterback backups. We've got Sean Tucker. A lot of people adding him here, Chris. Nice to see him with Tampa Bay. I loved him in college. I think he's going to be a nice little pick here, pick up for this team here. We've got Zay Flowers as well. Hunter Renfro, Mingo. A lot of people loving him as well. Jalen Tolbert, Noah Fant as well. Picks are intact going forward. Chris, with this team, oh man, I don't know what to make of this team here, Chris. I think the ceiling for this team is like 3rd, 4th place, but I think the floor for this team is like 10th or 11th.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, listen, I think I think it's a really interesting team. I happen to like it a lot. I could see how you would rank it the opposite way. Walker, Stevenson, Gibbs. I mean, a lot of question marks around those guys, but I think they're all just going to be very productive. Justin Fields, I love. I think he's going to be super productive. Dak as well. I think he's going to be very productive. I think Pittman and London are going to be fine. DJ Moore, I think he's going to be really good. And I think he's going to be able to figure out that last flex spot. And if you look at his bench, man, he's got so many attractive trade pieces. Well, I mean, he's got Deshaun Watson, I think, who is the most attractive trade piece, or Dak Prescott, however you want to play it. And I think that's huge in terms of trading to fill that last hole for him. He's got his pick as well. I just think he's going to be able to make that last flex spot work. And maybe I have a rosier view of his question mark guys than you do. So I think that's why I've got him up here at 7. You want to put him 8th or 9th? I'm fine with that. I think, like I said, it's tight between, these 8, 9, 10 teams. So I'd be okay with that. But I think this team has a real chance to be super, super consistent across the board with Walker and Stevenson, the amount of touches they're in line for, DJ Moore in Chicago, even Drake London and Michael Pittman. All these guys I feel like all these guys have the potential to have a ton of touches and a ton of production this season. But I mean, listen, they have their own question marks as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at these guys, and as you're saying their names, you're thinking, hey, those are the number ones in their respective position on their respective teams. But I mean, do you feel great about Walker, Stevenson, Pittman, London, DJ Moore, Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Robinson for their workload? I mean, how comfortable do you feel?
I mean, not Brian Robinson. The other guys, I think, are going to be, regardless of the competition they have behind them, I think they're just in line for a good amount of work, and I think they're going to be quality, productive players. Now, they may not have the game breaking type ability of a Jonathan Taylor or Christian McCaffrey, somebody like that, but I feel like maybe Justin Fields just simply provides that, right? And then your other quarterback. I think the quarterbacks provide the upside on this team and the ceiling. The position players provide the kind of safety floor, because I think they're going to have that. So that's I think, and for me that puts them in the 7, 8, 9 range. I had them at 7 just because I like the quarterbacks here, and I like the extra third quarterback that's really, really good, and potentially 2 trade pieces at quarterback, which can return quite a bit of value there. So I think he's got a lot to work with, and I like it overall.
Yeah, he definitely does. And, one of the things that we try to avoid is having a third stud quarterback on the bench. It just seems like kind of a waste. So I'm fine with Jordan Love being my third quarterback. I think I float Watson, Prescott, and Fields out there, see who gives me that best return in terms of position players and picks. Really trying to stack this thing up here as we go forward, to make myself a little bit deeper, a little bit more talented in the position players. Because just having a Watson sitting on the bench every single week is not ideal. And there's no sense in really having that expensive insurance policy sitting there on the bench. So just something to consider here as we approach, almost headed into June. So that's going to do it for us for part one. Stay tuned for part two. While you're waiting for the next show to boot up, how about you hit that like and subscribe button? And we appreciate it. See you guys in a little bit.